We have another busy day of NHL news and rumors to bring to you today, including the latest rumors on guys like Vladimir Tarasenko, Shayne Gostisbehere, and yes, even Lightning captain Steven Stamkos' futures in question with the organization. We also have some hires to announce regarding teams like Ottawa, Toronto, and the New York Rangers, and even the Stanley Cup has sustained some damage. We'll discuss that and more, all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of information to talk about here today. As usual, it's going to be a longer video and there's lots to cover, so certainly want to listen close, pay close attention, and watch all the way through because you don't want to miss anything. There's a lot of important updates here for you today. So first up today, I want to address the fact that the Stanley Cup has been damaged. Yes, the Tampa Bay Lightning have been partying quite hard down in Tampa. They had their boat parade today, and it looks like the cup has been put on LTIR by the Lightning. How appropriate, right? I'll show you a picture here on the screen, which clearly shows the top of the cup with a major dent in it. Obviously, I don't really know what happened, but it's been confirmed. It's not a picture that's been doctored or anything like that. I've seen the reports confirmed by a couple of very reputable reporters, including Joe Smith of The Athletic that covers the Lightning, an excellent reporter down there, very trustworthy. So we know that it's indeed the case. Apparently the Stanley Cup is being shipped to Montreal for repairs and will be brought back for the Lightning to continue having their celebrations here in about a week's time. So we know Kucherov and Sergachev and Vasilevsky and Stamkos and all those boys have been having lots of fun. All kinds of videos surfacing on social media like it usually happens every year after the cup's been awarded. And then we saw lots today from their boat parade. Like I said, they've been partying hard. I don't know what happened, but clearly maybe went a little bit overboard. And yes, the Stanley Cup is now has to go on long-term injury reserve. So we'll see what happens here when they get the cup back, but it's not the first time this has happened either. There's been other stuff that have, lots of other stories I'm sure you could listen to about the Stanley Cup and things that have happened to it in the past, but it's always been managed to been fixed up or repaired or what have you. So we'll see how things go for the continuing of the celebration once it returns. Now, as I mentioned, we have several other NHL teams that have made announcements today regarding some hires. We'll start with Ottawa. That news came out bright and early this morning from Bruce Garriock of the Ottawa Sun, later confirmed by the team that they've hired Pierre Mcguire. Yes, that's Pierre Mcguire, former broadcaster with NBC for so many years. He's worked with other outlets as well, including TSN and NHL Network and a few others, I think, over the time, but predominantly in the most recent years with NBC Sports. But Pierre Mcguire is widely considered a very knowledgeable hockey guy. He's been around the game forever. He was once upon a time, an executive and coach before many years ago in the NHL, but primarily last, I think it's been around 25 years, has been in broadcasting. A lot of people consider Mcguire to be a little odd, make some, comments on when he's been broadcasting that are a little out there, I guess you could say. He's a unique personality, that is for certain, but I will suggest that Senators fans give the guy a chance. I mean, he's going to be the senior vice president of player development, so there's no real imminent threat here that he's going to be suddenly taking over the team or anything. I know they made it clear that Pierre Dorian's still the GM. Obviously, Melnick's the owner. He's very much involved, as we know. But some wonder if Mcguire being in there with having guys like Pierre Dorian and head coach DJ Smith on the final year of their contracts might signify a changing of the guard if next season doesn't go well. I'm not so sure about that. I guess we'll see. If they don't get extensions before the beginning of the season, though, I guarantee some will be questioning it for sure. And like I said, I know there's a lot of people against Mcguire because he doesn't like analytics and all that. But you got to remember something as well. When these guys are on TV in the broadcasting world, to a degree, they are a bit of a character as much as they are a person, and they're there for entertainment value. And I think Mcguire, yes, he's over the top. He's a little odd, but I do think at the same time he is a pretty smart, knowledgeable hockey guy, and I need to be giving him a chance. So we'll see how things go, but it's certainly a surprising move by the Senators to hire somebody like that in that role. Hopefully it's a sign of good things to come as they're bringing in more people to expand their staff here. Let's look at it in a positive way like that. Now, we also had some hires as well. The Maple Leafs have filled their vacant assistant coaching role created by Dave Haxtell going to Seattle. They've hired Dean Chynoweth, who's the former assistant coach with the Carolina Hurricanes, who's now the assistant coach in Toronto. He'll likely be looking after the defense stuff. He's a fairly experienced assistant coach and should do a decent job. The Leafs had been linked to some bigger names that probably would have come with a bigger price tag as well, but for them that's usually not an issue. But we've heard guys like Rick Tocchet or Bruce Boudreau, even others that might have been considered or whatnot, but obviously they've gone in this direction here, so we'll see how that works out. And the New York Rangers have added some assistant coaches to Gerard Gallant's staff. Of course, he's brought in Mike Kelly, who's primarily worked with Gallant quite a bit. Those two go way back. And they've also brought in Gord Murphy, who's another extremely experienced assistant coach, been around a long time, of course, former player as well. So those guys are certainly very well known to each other, and it's believed that the Rangers are going to be looking to add another member to that staff as well. They're looking for a third assistant or associate coach, and they'll be kind of trying to confirm that here soon, but that's somebody that they're still working on that piece to be hired. And we also have news out of Nashville, except we don't fully know what the news is, except that their PR department has confirmed that there's a major announcement coming at a press conference tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Central. So what could that announcement be? Let the speculation begin. They don't normally announce trades like that, or it's not free agency yet, so there's no signings. I'm not really sure what it could be. There's really no insiders reporting at this point, at least, as I record this video, any kind of speculation. If I had to throw my 2 cents in there, what it could be, I'd say it's one of two things. I'd say possibly Pekka Rinne making an announcement about retirement. That's a possibility. I mean, he's been there a long time. One of the greatest players in the franchise has ever had. So I think if he wants to announce his retirement, they would do that in a larger scale event. So I can see that maybe being the case. And I could also see it maybe David Poile maybe finally either goes to the president of hockey operations or opts for retirement. I'd be surprised if he retired completely. That would be a bit shocking. I mean, I've seen enough interviews with him here in the last couple of months, and it doesn't really give that impression. I mean, he is getting up there in years. Been around a long time around the NHL. Been the only GM that this franchise has had, and they've been in the league now for quite some time. So maybe he's going to go to a president of hockey operations role or an advisory role, and they're bringing in a new GM or something to that effect. Those are the only things I can think of that would kind of make sense to do what they would call a major announcement. And that would kind of fall into the idea of having a big press conference. So obviously, if somebody was getting fired, they would just do it, through the regular PR method here. We wouldn't be getting a big press conference. So that doesn't make sense either. So difficult to say, but it's got to be something along those lines. But we'll find that out tomorrow. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think the Predators are going to be making an announcement on in the morning. And before we jump into the trade rumors of the day, I do want to take a moment here and pause to acknowledge one of our channel sponsors, Manscaped. Now, before we jump into today's trade talk, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for checking out that promotional video. I do greatly appreciate it, as well as the support from the sponsor. It really does help out a lot. Now, jumping into today's trade talk, I want to start off with Blues winger Vladimir Tarasenko, who's again making a lot of news here today. There's been various articles in the St. Louis media and Boston media, as well as others, talking about some potential trades here. I want to talk a little bit about some linkage between Tarasenko and either the Bruins or the New York Islanders. Now, I've seen reports from Jeremy Rutherford. We've also seen reports in Boston Hockey Now from Joe Haggerty as well, talking about some potential trade offers, either what they feel would get it done or possibly what's rumored to be being discussed. But it is believed, that on the Islanders side especially, that they are one of the teams that requested the medical records for Tarasenko, and that they've received that. So we'll see, but it's believed that, according to Rutherford, he feels the starting point for them to get a deal done would be sending young defenseman Noah Dobson and a first-round pick. That's what his opinion was. He also indicated they could even look to a player like an Oliver Wahlstrom. And to me, I don't think Lou Lamoriello would budge on those types of trades. Like, I mean, as much as he'd like to add another scoring winger to play with a guy like Barzal, giving up his future to me just doesn't make a ton of sense. Rutherford also goes on to mention that as soon as the Isles are requesting to move Dobson, that they're going to request Vince Dunn in return, which would be, somewhat comparable. Dunn's slightly older than Dobson, but, they could both play a similar type of a role. I mean, Dobson's a little bit different. One shoots right, one shoots left. Little difference in size, slightly difference in play, but, at least they're young, mobile defensemen, I guess, is the one thing they'd have in common, but still not really something I don't think the Islanders would be too crazy about. I mean, the trade offer that we had heard about previously a number of days back was a package including Beauvillier and Eberle and maybe a first rounder or something like that going to St. Louis is what the initial offers were looking like. Now, of course, we don't know how St. Louis feels about all that. I can understand why they'd probably prefer some younger assets. Beauvillier, I think, would have some appeal. I'm not so sure about Eberle, though. That's probably wishful thinking, but I guess we'll have to see. Now, there's also new reports as well from Arthur Staple confirming that the Islanders are indeed, and this will be a separate deal or could be included, but most likely separate, that they are pushing hard to move defenseman Nick Leddy as well, trying to move that final year of over $5 million on the cap to make some other moves. So that's also something that Lou is working on. It wouldn't be shocking if he ends up being exposed if he's not traded first as well. So they're certainly interested in adding another player. They got their own RFAs to add here as well. So you can't forget that. They have a guy like Adam Pelech that they need to sign. They have Ilya Sorokin. They have Beauvillier. They all need new deals. And it's going to be complicated for sure. Now, on the Boston side of things, if they want to proceed here, according to Boston Hockey Now, they're suggesting a trade could get it done of either Trent Frederick, who's a St. Louis native, and a first-round pick, or possibly instead of Frederick, they try to move Jake DeBrusk, because DeBrusk is a player they've kind of all agree on that needs a fresh start. At least a lot of media people agree on that. So, would DeBrusk in a first be something that the Blues would consider? Now, of course, in my opinion, the only way Boston really pushes this narrative here is if they're not going to be able to retain Taylor Hall. To me, if they're going to have Hall and Krejci come back, then it doesn't make sense to bring in Tarasenko. That's going to be awfully tough from a financial standpoint. That's going to be almost impossible. And Krejci, to me, will only play in Boston. If he plays next year, he'll be a Bruin. There's no doubt about it. Taylor Hall's a little bit less guaranteed of that, but it is more likely than not. I mean, there was a lot of mutual interest. I'd be surprised if he ends up going elsewhere, but we have heard rumblings that it's not a given, and it's not even so much that Taylor Hall wants to leave. It's just that there's a lot of other teams expressing interest, which after how he played in Boston and you saw a better version of Taylor Hall, it's understandable that there might be more teams interested and that Hall might push this to free agency just to have more of a chance, just to see what's out there before he does settle on a contract with Boston. But I still think that's likely where he ends up. So if that's the case, I really don't see a case of Tarasenko going to Boston, but we'll see. Those trade rumors are persisting in that regard, that the Bruins are showing interest, but we'll see as we learn more information about that situation as well. Now, when it comes to the Philadelphia Flyers, now there is word that maybe their selection in the expansion draft might end up being defenseman Shayne Gostisbehere. They've been trying to trade this guy for a couple years, and here's the rationale behind it. Just like the possibility of Jake Voracek being plucked by the Kraken if he's exposed, and many believe he will be, is that like Voracek, Gostisbehere had his best years when Dave Haxtell was his head coach. At one point, Gostisbehere was a really solid, young, up-and-coming defenseman that looked like he was going to be, a top 5D or top 5 to 10 defenseman and scoring consistently. Like, he came out of college, played the first couple of years, he was looking like, you've seen steady growth, and then he really peaked around 60 points. And all that happened with Haxtell at the helm. So you have to think that maybe, I'm sure Haxtell will have some sort of influence over the players that are selected in the expansion draft, and they're going to listen to him, especially if it's players that he's worked with before, and they're obviously going to have to compare what else they have to pick from. So obviously, Philly being the main team he's been a head coach for before, he's also worked with the Leafs, so he's going to have more intel on those teams than anybody else because he has firsthand experience working directly with those players. So like Voracek, who's the same scenario, who had some of his best seasons under Haxtell as well. So, if both of those players are available, you'd have to think that maybe they go for Gostisbehere instead of Voracek, because it's all half, it's all like half the contract. Voracek's over $8 million, where Gostisbehere's only like $4.5. So big difference there when it comes to money. Not to say that a trade couldn't be worked out separately. So we'll see about that. I mean, Voracek is not a given that he gets moved with the Flyers. Like, as Elliot Friedman's made it clear on a couple of occasions, a few interviews I've seen him do here, he said it's not like it's an acrimonious situation. Like, he's not, pissed off at the team. The team's not like absolutely done with them. It's not like the relationship has gone completely sour here. It's just a case where they both agreed that maybe they should explore getting a change of scenery. So I think they're both open to it, but I think they're also both open to him being with the team and being in training camp in the fall. So we'll have to see if the right deal comes along. But obviously that's a lot of money for a team to take on like Voracek. I said the other day, if they're going to trade Voracek, to me it makes more sense if they trade him to another team with another big contract, and it's like a fairly even swap to get guys changes of scenery. But we'll see on that. But based on the history of Gostisbehere and Hackstall, wouldn't be shocking if either Gostisbehere is their selection in the expansion draft, or if a trade is worked out involving him to Seattle as well. Now, lastly, I want to touch quickly on Lightning captain Steven Stamkos. Now, there's not a ton of information on this, except TSN insider Darren Dreger on TSN Radio did make mention that there is some questions around the future of Stamkos with the organization, basically saying that there's basically some whispers around the league that maybe he ends up getting traded just because they're in a major cap crunch. We saw how things were handled last year. They ended up being $18 million over the cap with all the long-term injury reserve that they had to use. It's not an ideal situation. And if they're going to legit not have to do that this coming season, they're going to have to move out a fair bit. I mean, not only are they going to lose guys like Coleman and Gaudreau in free agency, but they're going to have to move out probably at least a couple of other guys, which they would probably prefer that to be Tyler Johnson. And then you're looking at a combination of guys like Alex Killorn, or maybe a Yanni Gord. But some of these guys also have no trade clauses. And when it comes to Stamkos, he's got a no move clause. So it's not like you can just move the guy. It's not that simple. He would have to agree to it. But I can understand where he has a bigger cap hit. Why, if they could move him, then it means there's two other guys that could stay instead. That's just how things work financially. So I can understand why they would consider it. And you also have to consider this as well. I mean, no disrespect to Stamkos, but when he was out last year, look how well they played and they won the cup, and he barely contributed in the playoffs because of the injuries. So they don't need him. And then this year, he did play, but he was hurt. He was banged up for sure. I don't know exactly what he's dealing with, but he wasn't, I'm not going to say he wasn't important, because he was, but you can definitely see that if they could keep a lot of the other team together and move him instead, they would be okay. There's no doubt. Like when Kucherov was out, when Stamkos was out, they were fine. Like, they have a very deep team. Those guys just put them over the top when they're all healthy and in the lineup, but they're not, make or break type of guys. As much as they're really good hockey players, they're so deep and so talented that they don't need all those guys. So we'll see. I mean, to me, it's going to have to be something that he would agree to facilitate. And after winning back-to-back championships and being on a team with some of his real good friends, I'm not convinced that Steven Stamkos would agree to anything. We know that Victor Hedman is like his best friend. They've been together playing in Tampa a long time. That's part of the reason why they both signed long-term deals, was to play there and can make that team a contender and be able to play together too. So I don't see Stamkos going anywhere. It's taken off a lot of convincing. So again, another situation we will watch and monitor, but not something I'm necessarily expecting to develop into anything more than just a rumor. So we'll see what happens, but let me know your thoughts on what we discussed here today. We'll discuss down in the comments section. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.